Hey everybody, Jason Bent with Bent's Woodworking. Today I just want to do a quick video of how I have my shop laid out. I did a video last week, but it ended up being about 45 minutes long, and I'm fairly certain that nobody here wants to listen to me speak for 45 minutes. The reason it was so long is I spent too much time talking about the tools themselves and how I like those tools. So what I'm going to do differently today to make the video much shorter is I'm just going to do how I have my shop laid out. And the reason I'm doing this is because one of the most beneficial things that I've found on a lot of these sites or on YouTube or say the Wood Whisperer or Jay Bates is they have areas of their web pages that are dedicated specifically just to shop tours, you know, taking pictures of people's shops or videos of people's shops. And I've watched pretty much all of them or looked at the pictures on almost all of them, and it's helped me set up my shop to the way I have it where I'm going to show you today. So I just think it's always good if you see something or something works for you, hey, maybe it'll work for somebody else or vice versa. So I've actually done a lot of modifications to my shop based off what I've seen in those videos. So that's what we're going to do today. So at the end, I'll talk about things I like and things I don't like about this shop compared to what I was doing, which was just a standard 2-car garage. And also what I'm going to do differently on the next shop that I build once I retire from the Army. Lessons learned from this shop and working in the garage. And then that'll be the end of the video. So to go ahead and start, my shop is a 24 by 20 insulated detached shop. It is a detached structure from my regular house, and the exterior of the shop matches the house. Now, I did not make this shop. I actually lived right down the street and bought this house because the shop was part of the house, obviously, and the person that actually lived here built this specifically for doing wood crafts and projects on their own in their spare time. So we ended up buying the house. We moved in. I started doing my woodworking in it. And then over time, because it's so hot here in Georgia, and then currently, you know, so cold now in the summertime, I thought it'd be a good idea to put drywall insulation. So that's what I did. And man, has it made a huge difference. So that's the first plus. So it's 20 feet wide by 24 feet long. And if behind me is actually the front door, which is a double door. And then in the back, which you'll see, I have a single door leading to my backyard. And then the shop itself, about halfway back down the wall, is fenced in, so half of it's in my yard, half of it's in the front. So to start, we'll go over my dust collection system and kind of where it runs, and then we'll get into the layout of the shop. So that's my dust collection system. It is a 3 horsepower jet dust collection system, which is a huge upgrade from what I previously had. I put it back here in the back corner just because I wanted it to be out of the way, and I'd be able to run the hose and my piping 2 different directions from that corner, and it just worked out so I didn't have really long runs. And it is constructed of 4-inch PVC for now. Later on I'll probably upgrade to a larger diameter. It runs down the wall and has drops to various tools all the way up to my router table. And then on this side, you see the drop right here. This is to my table saw. And then over here is to my drill press and my floor sweep. And then it runs along the wall. And there's a drop that goes down to the miter saw station for the possibility to do an enclosure. And then it runs back down this wall and back to the corner. So coming in my front door, we'll just start in the middle. Coming in my front door is where I have my table saw. And so it's the minute you walk in, I've got the double doors. It's easy for me to manipulate long pieces of material. If I have to open the doors, I can open the doors for extra long pieces. It very rarely happens. I have about 5 to 6 feet of clearance from the edge of the table saw to the actual front door. So for most things, I never have to open the door. It is very rare that I'll ever have an 8-foot piece of plywood or walnut or whatever I'm cutting to where I have to open up the doors. So, and I did that for a reason, so it would be less that I would have to open up the door. Now, did I waste a little bit of space? Yes, but I had the space to afford here. And then right on the back side, I just have my outfeed table, which is just a very, very simple design outfeed table. Obviously, it's on the back side of the table saw to serve as an outfeed table. I don't really use it for much else. I do have a drawer that I do keep all my measuring devices in. Reason being is because the table that the tripod for the camera is sitting on right now is actually my assembly table. So if I ever need my measuring devices, I simply just turn around, grab them, and I use them at my table. Now, if you come in right when you come in right for my shop, I've got my wood storage all over here in this corner. This is where all my scraps or all my current project wood goes for the most part, unless it's sheet goods that goes on the other side, which you'll see. And then I've got my drill press here, out of the way of everything. Does not interfere with my miter station, and if I have a real long piece, I simply just raise this or lower this, and then it doesn't bother it. And then next to that, I've just got a toolbox and some random tools that I just threw up on the wall, things that I use frequently. So then moving further down that wall is my miter saw station. I'm sure you'll be familiar with the style of the miter saw station. It is very similar to the one that Jay Bates built. Matter of fact, the bottom for the most part is identical, with the exception of I chose not to do the drawers because I have plenty of storage in my assembly table and throughout the rest of the shop. And it really just serves now as open bays for Festool sustainers that are empty, because all of my Festool products are either out or they're in my assembly table where I use them the most. On the right hand side, I will end up doing some drawers, maybe a shelving unit, but again, I don't really need the storage. I just like the ability to have the capacity both right and left of the blade, and it doesn't sit too far out from the wall because I was able to get the Festool Capex and kind of push that up against the wall. So by switching to that and making this miter saw station, I actually saved a ton of space because before I had the 12-inch sliding miter saw from DeWalt, and it just required the miter saw station to be way too far out from the wall, and it really got annoying. So I decided to go ahead and get a much more smaller, compact miter saw, and I built this miter saw station. And then on the left-hand side, instead of doing drawers and different cubbies, I just did a very simple cubby system design, and it's specifically for all of my scrap wood. And this has saved me a ton of space, because before I had a dedicated shelving system that housed all of my scraps, and I started saving too many scraps, and a lot of stuff wasn't usable, and it would fall off the shelf. So I really just got tired of it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to build a system where it's right next to it, right next to the miter saw, so whatever scraps I have I can put up there, and if it's something I'm not going to keep, I just simply throw it in the trash. So this has worked out very good. I have a big open area for storage for my Craig Foreman that really just stays underneath there because I don't really get a chance to use it all that much anymore. And then I have my Festool shop vac dedicated specifically for the Capex underneath, directly underneath the miter saw, with increased size hose and slightly shorter hose, and it's really improved the dust collection on the Capex. If you continue to move around the shop, you will see my bandsaw, which is currently located here with a 4-inch dust collection drop. The hose connects directly into the back of it. I have it here simply because I have this open area right here. So in the event that I have a very, very long piece, which almost never happens unless I'm resawing something that's very long, but again, that's very, very, very rare that I ever have to do that, I can simply slide this over here, and I have the space on both sides. But for the most part, I don't think I've moved it more than like one time since I've had it there, and it works out very well. Back right here, you have the door that leads to the back, which is great for if I'm going to do any kind of finish work outside, or I want to go outside and sand or something like that. I have a little table set up out back where I can go and drink coffee or just take a break. And then as you go around, you'll see my clamp rack storage system that I did. Very simple. I intend on getting a lot more clamps, so this clearly will not house all of those clamps, but that's fine. I have other areas dedicated to where if I ever needed to get more clamps and put them on there, I could. But for right now, this has always worked for me, and I haven't really had a need for many more clamps. So I just made a very simple design, and the reason I put that there is because, again, my assembly table is right here in front of me. So instead of having to dig through piles of clamps or go across the shop to get a clamp, I simply just turn around and the clamp rack is right there. Already discussed the dust collection system, but right back here in this corner, I actually have my DeWalt planer, and it's just a spot where I put it out of the way. And if I ever have to empty this bin, it's as easy as just pulling this out because it is on the stand. I empty the bin, I slide it back in, and I can put my planer back. But I don't want this out unless I'm using it because it just is something else that gets in the way. So I keep it back here in the corner, good use of the space, and that's where it sits. And then as you go around, further around my shop, we've got my joiner. I place the joiner here, obviously, because I am able to get a long distance on both sides of the already long beds in order to do any of my joining work. And then this is also where I keep my larger clamp systems, and also where I keep my Festool shop vac that I use for all of my tools, along with the boom arm. It happens to just fit here perfectly. Again, I can just roll it straight up to the table, and I can do everything I need to all the way around my assembly table. And then I just push it back and I have this wide open walkway. So this area pretty much always stays open at all times. So continuing to move around, back to the front and the doors. This is where I keep all of my full size or slightly smaller than full size sheet goods. Reason I keep them here is I only have 8-foot ceilings, and it's just easier for me to bring them into the shop and place them against this wall, and then it doesn't cover up any of the other wood that I have that I might be using for a project. I can simply put it over here against the wall. I really don't put anything else over here simply because that is my storage area for the plywood, and lately I've been using a lot more plywood, so I want to have easy access to it. The only thing that it inhibits is my breaker box, which is directly behind the plywood, as you can see, and because I run my larger shop lights on the switch, and I'll either turn them on or off using the actual switch in the box because they're plugged into permanent power, so there's not actual switch for them. But that's very rare, and it's not that hard to just walk over there, pull them out, and turn them on. And then right here next to the door, this is where I have my router table and router cabinet. Again, I like it in this area because a lot of times I will do routing projects coming directly from the table saw, so it just makes sense. I'm at the table saw, I cut my pieces, I turn, I use my router table. It's all very quick, and then I can bring whatever I have over to my assembly table to assemble the projects. So this is also on wheels, and again, I have this open area right here, so in the event that I have a long piece, all I have to do is simply wheel the router table out of the way, and I have all the space that I need right here, and there's nothing that inhibits my work. Now moving on to the last item, which is my assembly table. I'll just show a picture of it. That's my assembly table. Obviously it has the Polk style top. There's a piece of plywood sitting on top of it right now, but it's just a Polk style top. And then down at the bottom is a design off a torsion box assembly table off the Wood Whisperer site that he did, that I made slight modifications to, such as I have 2 deep drawers on one side. Both the doors here and over here, they actually go all the way through. So that's where I keep my compressor and just some other random tools. I have that placed where it is. Obviously, for me, I just wanted my assembly table. I wanted nothing around my assembly table at all. It's the same height as my outfeed table and my table saw. So in the event that I'm cutting something and it needs to go even further, it simply just goes right onto my assembly table, and it works very well. I initially planned on doing my assembly table / outfeed table, but Yes, that would have given me more space in the shop, but if you've ever done that before, you'll probably know that it becomes a very big pain with if I'm assembling something and then, oh, hey, I got to cut something. So now I've got to move what I'm assembling, cut the piece, especially if it's a long piece. And I actually did that for a while when I worked in the garage, and it just didn't work out. I was tired of moving stuff. So that's why I have a dedicated assembly table and a dedicated outfeed table. It has worked a million times better. I still have the issue because I'll sometimes use my outfeed table to assemble things, just because I may have a lot on my assembly table and then I have to cut something and I have to move stuff to the side, but it's on a much smaller scale, very small items. So that is my shop, and that is how I have it laid out. What I like about it, I like that it is now insulated. I like the way that I have it set up now. I like the amount of lighting, and I like the amount of outlets that are in it. Now, again, I didn't do any of that with the exception of, if you look right here, I have one of these right above my assembly table, and then I have one right above my table saw, and during the evening I like to turn those on. Right now it's bright outside, there's absolutely no need for them, so I keep them off. But there's multiple lights. There's 12 of these lights that you see right here. That is also something that I don't like. What I don't like about it is it has 8-foot ceilings. 8-foot ceilings is something that I will never do in a shop again. Again, I didn't build this one. It's what I came into. But I will not do an 8-foot ceiling again, because most of the products that I purchase are 8 foot or longer, because I get all my lumber from a lumber supplier now. And many times you might get, 130 or 150 inch pieces of wood that you immediately have to cut. And I like to keep all my wood vertical. It's just a lot easier to get to, as opposed to on a rack where you have to sift through stuff and it becomes a much more of a pain. So that's a huge problem. The other problem is, if you notice the light actually comes down about 6 or 7 inches due to the type of bulbs. Now, that's a simple fix. All I would have to do is get recessed lighting, but that's just something that I don't have a lot of time to do right now, nor do I really want to go to it, but that still will not alleviate the fact that I have 8-inch ceilings. So the next shop that I build after this will definitely have probably 12-foot ceilings, if not maybe even a little bit higher. But 12 foot I think would be suitable. Even 10 foot would probably be suitable, but I know I would regret it, so I'd probably do 12 foot. The other thing is, it's on a subfloor. There is no concrete. It's stable, but as you walk around the shop, there are places that it moves just a little bit. So, if I walk around my drill press, it'll shake just a little bit, and it creaks some, and it's just, I start to worry because of the amount of weight that I have in the shop now. I definitely would use concrete, and the floor is much more uneven with the subfloor than it would be with concrete typically. But I will definitely have a concrete slab in my next shop. In terms of size, realistically, it's not any bigger than my 2-car garage. I mean, most 2-car garages are 20 by 20 or 22 by 20, so it's fairly similar. The reason it feels bigger is because with a garage, you usually have a lot more items in a garage that deal with the house. So that's space lost. In here, I have nothing but woodworking stuff, and I use my garage now as a finishing booth and keep all my yard equipment in there. So I have that extra space. Is it enough space? Yes, depending on what you're building. I tend to build a lot of much larger projects. I just get requests for bigger things like tables and built-ins, cabinets, islands, that kind of stuff. So I don't do a lot of small things. So for the small stuff, it's great. I don't need the extra space. But when I'm doing big stuff, it does get a little cramped, because if I have to use this open area here that I showed you to place the bookshelf that I'm making, or the kitchen island, because I'm working on something on the assembly table, and then all of a sudden I need to use my planer, things start to get in the way and it gets a little frustrating. So 20 by 24, yes, it's a good size. However, my next shop, I will do probably no smaller than 30 by 40. And it will just be one open room. If I went any bigger than that, it would simply be to have another closed off room that would be simply for finishing. And that's what I would like to do, so I could keep everything in the same place. But it's more than enough for now. But when I build my next shop, I will absolutely 100% build it larger. because by then I can only imagine, 5-6 years from now when I do retire from the Army and start this full time, I can only imagine how many tools that I'll end up having at that point. So anyways, that's my shop tour. Feel free to post any questions that you have on maybe why I put something somewhere, or if you have any questions about any of the tools. I'll do additional videos that talk directly about the tools. I just didn't want to make a 45-minute video talking about the shop and tools because it's easy to get off track. So that's my shop. I hope you found something useful. I know I have in all the videos that I've watched. So I'm thankful for those videos because it's given me a lot of good insight as to where to put things and why to put them there, and given me an idea to try a lot of things that did or didn't work out. So if you like the video, hit like, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be posting, hopefully at least once a week, something, whether it's a tool review or progress of my projects or how I made projects. Since I do the larger projects, it'll probably be a while before I start doing videos on the projects that I make, but smaller stuff I might throw that on there, or techniques that I use that have helped me, because again, I found that very helpful as well. So anyway, like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.